Nerdrotic.com.
Welcome to Nerdrotic, everyone. My name is Gary Beekler, and I come to you from Nerdrotic.com, and this is the Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 2 review of New Eden. I record these videos separately from our longer live streams for those of you who don't want to sit through them, but if you want to see both, I will link it in the description, so let's get going. This episode was, of course, directed by Jonathan Frakes, Commander Riker himself, written by Akiva Goldsman and Sean Cochran, whose only previous writing credits are none. But he has been a production assistant on such sci-fi greats as Lipstick Jungle, Mercy, Off the Map, GCB, and Revenge. And where do we start with Akiva Goldsman? We have Sonar in Space. We have Nipples on the Batsuit. But his latest work had Robin in the show Titans stabbing a guy in the nethers with a pair of scissors. Teleplay is by Vaughn Wilmot, who has worked on Sons of Anarchy, Prison Break, and Dominion. There will be spoilers ahead, so go ahead and watch the episode if you dare, and then come check out this video. And again, there is a longer live stream that I recorded right after the episode aired that you can catch in the description. We start the episode with Michael Burnham playing the message that Spock left last episode for Captain Pike. He then informs her that Spock has indeed committed himself to an institution on Starbase 5. Michael Burnham asks why wasn't she told, and Captain Pike informs her that he didn't want any of his family members told, and considering how Michael Burnham is, would you have told her either? But unfortunately, they probably should have told Michael Burnham that Spock was there, because she could have probably handled it with just a simple mind meld. Captain Pike talks about family dynamics and says he really didn't get along with his father. And of course, we couldn't have a Hollywood show without a bad father. And then Michael Burnham has an opportunity to tell him the truth when he asks for the truth about the Red Angel, and she decides not to. Then Commander Captain Burnham and Co-Captain Pike are called onto the bridge because they got another one of those red signals. Then Michael Burnham does something awesome. A crew member nods affirmingly, and they find out that the red signal is 51,450 light years away in the Beta Quadrant, and there's no way they can get there unless, of course, they use the Spore Drive. Captain Pike makes a little smirky comment about tardigrades, and they fire it up. Before Stamets hooks himself to the network, he confides to Tilly that he has seen Hugh alive inside there, and it's not some sort of vision. He thinks he's actually in there, kind of like the Nexus from Star Trek Generations. They arrive at the planet and impossibly find a human settlement, which is much farther than anybody has gone before in current timeline, and it is broadcasting a distress signal and has been for over 200 years on a loop. That sounds like some form of battle. Pike, Burnham, and Saro discuss the situation and decide that the humans' arrival coincides with the end of World War III, where 6 million people had died. And of course, there is 11,000 people on this planet. It is surrounded by radioactive debris, and Pike starts to suspect divine intervention, which Burnham doubts immediately. The planet falls under the rules of General Order 1, the Prime Directive, so they're going to have to send an away mission and blend in. Tilly, in the meantime, wants to extract some of the dark matter asteroid to help possibly interface with the Spore Drive so Stamets won't have to, and apparently 1 cubic centimeter of this asteroid is a metric ton. She has some anti-grav unit to take the piece out, and as she does, it zaps her across the shuttle bay. Burnham, Pike, and Oshikuwu end up in a church that ends up being a smorgasbord of all the religions. And then they're confronted by who we later find out to be Jacob, and they meet the All-Mother. Jacob takes Pike, Michael, and Joanne to the Church of the Coexist, where we meet the All-Mother, and she tells the story of how they arrived on Terralisium. She talks about the survivors all coming from different religions, and they just decided to throw all their gods in together into one pot with no fight or battle, even though these are all survivors of World War III. She refers to the Red Angel, and in a previous scene, Pike had pointed out the stained glass in the church telling the story of the scripture, and we saw an image of the Red Angel in that stained glass. But in case you forgot that scene, which was 1 minute before, they flash back to it. While they are trying to blend in, Michael Burnham is asking an awful lot of questions about how the church actually got there and how those people got there, because there was no ships, there was nothing. And again, they talk about the Red Angel, and it was a miracle. And then Jacob mentions that he has a helmet camera, but it's broken. And they've been there for 200 years. I don't know, just out of boredom, you think they would have tried to tinker with the thing once or twice. Back on Discovery in sickbay, Tilly is woken up by a crew member who we've never seen before. Then Saru and the doctor walk in. Then Saru starts chewing out Tilly for for trying to take the dark matter out of the asteroid by herself. Then he figures out what she is doing. She's trying to integrate the dark matter to try to save Stamets from having to hook up to it. And then, of course, we get one of our many affirmation scenes. And that's kind of one of the things you see in fan fiction all the time. There's a lot of yay me's and you're really good and you're really awesome. Yeah, this show is full of that stuff. And of course, we have our J.J. Abrams, Alex Kurtzman, red matter. And that's what this dark matter is going to be. One of our super chatters put it perfectly last night. They have their Plotholeum, which it could also be unobtainium or crapoleum, or you can just fill in the blanks from there. Mr. Saru is then called to the bridge, and we find out that one of those radioactive rings around the planet is destabilizing and sending down some kind of radioactive energy that will cause an extinction level event. When Mr. Saru asks the helmswoman for the readings, she says, bad, really bad. An arbitrary countdown clock is on, and of course they can't contact the captain. And then Mr. Sorrow figures out that that's the reason that the Red Angel or the Red Burst had brought them to the planet, and Mr. Sorrow will not have a catastrophe on his watch. Pike, Burnham, and Joanne, whatever her name is, go to the church basement. They find a bunch of equipment. Then they see the source of the signal, and it's a beacon, and it's running on power, although the All-Mother had said there is no power in the place, and there hasn't been for years. Used this power and rerouted it from the beacon. But we find out that Jacob and his family have been tending to this beacon all this time for hundreds of years, apparently. Jacob tells them he is completely onto them, and his family had suspected that people had survived World War III and evolved. Pike denies this, of course, and leaves, and then Jacob uses a flash grenade on them and locks them in the basement. Back in the sick bay, Tilly and the mystery girl figure if you use the Plotholeum, which I'm going to call the dark matter asteroid for the rest of this recap, to pull the ring away from the planet like a magnet, that it would save everybody. So, of course, they're going to do it, but they can't just fly around it. They were going to do a donut in space, but then they decide to use Stamets again so they can use the spore drive. Anas Abdeen, I hope you're paying attention. They did mention tardigrades. They did mention spore drive a lot. I think you might have a claim to this, by the way. Link will be in the description. Star Trek Discovery might be plagiarized from a game called Tardigrades by our good friend Anas Abdeen. Back on Terra Elysium, Jacob stole all the equipment from Burnham, Joanne, and Pike to show to the All-Mother to prove that they are not from the planet. Of course, they are able to escape the basement and they confront Jacob, but before they can really get to anything, a girl grabs a hold of a phaser, turns it on to self-destruct, and then Pike has to jump on it. And there you have it. Our first selfless act by a straight white male in Star Trek Discovery. The Discovery does the donut maneuver as the Plotholeum comes out the shuttle bay, then Stamets spore drives it out of there, and the Plotholeum drags the outer ring, which is setting down the radioactive goo-goo that will kill everybody, out into space. Without running into any other asteroids, without any collisions that would send, any of those rocks back to the planet. It just sucks them out into space. And then, of course, Burnham, Joanne, and Pike are able to get into the church and lock out Jacob and the All-Mother and beam out real quick, but not before they all witness it. But the All-Mother thinks it's a miracle, Jacob thinks something else, and everything's okay. Back on Discovery, Captain Pike is going to be okay. He's mending from his injuries. Tilly's mystery friend turns out to have been a dead friend from school, and it might have something to do with the dark matter or the Red Angel. Then Michael Burnham suggests that Pike go back down to Terra Elysium to at least tell Jacob that Earth did survive and the Galactic Federation does exist, which he did. Traded a battery for that helmet cam. When he got back on the Discovery, he watched the video of the helmet cam, and it confirmed the last moments of the church while it was on Earth, and before it disappeared, the Red Angel did appear in the doorway, and that's how the episode ends. Although they told us all along that that's how the church got there, I guess we just needed some confirmation about this. So we have an institutionalized Spock. We have a little bit of the Plotholeum left that can get them out of any trouble in a future episode. And I believe we only have 13 more episodes to go, 12 or 13. I'm not sure. I'm not really going to count at this point. The directing in this episode was particularly annoying, and I know thou shalt not speak ill of anybody from the next generation, but Jonathan Frakes' directing was within the aesthetic that is laid out by Kurtzman and J.J. Abrams from the 2009 Star Trek, which I thoroughly despise. I didn't mind it in the '09 Star Trek film, and it's not even the lens flares. It's the constant movement of the camera. You feel like you need to take Dramamine when you're watching an episode of Star Trek Discovery. That and lots of liquor if you drink that. Unfortunately, I don't drink, so it's particularly painful to watch an episode of this show. To put my fair hat on, though, these episodes have been better than season 1. That's not saying much, but they are better than season 1. I do like Anson Mount as Pike. I just think they're going to keep putting him in positions where he's asking for help all the time. He doesn't seem like much of a captain. He doesn't make very many decisions on his own, but he's always got Michael Burnham there to take care of him. This is indeed the Michael Burnham show, no doubt. If anybody thought they were going to dial that stuff back, it just gets ramped up more and more. And of course, the one message we got in it was coexist. And it was very simplistic, so I can't say there's anything deep with that message. And at least it's not as preachy as, say, Doctor Who was. I'll give it that. Still no Spock, Captain Emperor Georgiou, or the Klingons, but when they show up, the fireworks will start within the Star Trek fandom, and I am looking forward to that a little bit. Until then, it's just mediocre, forgettable episodes, and if you think I'm getting soft on the show, I'm not. I will never get over Michael Burnham being related to Spock, and they'll never be able to explain that, although I look forward to their explanation. Their whole marketing campaign on the off-season was, "Don't worry, we'll explain it." Great marketing campaign. The reason they inserted Michael Burnham in a prequel and made her related to Spock was to guarantee her legacy in Star Trek, to make her the first at everything. She was the first to know Spock because she was related to Spock. She did this before Kirk. She did that before Picard. They want her to be the icon of Star Trek retroactively, and it just simply doesn't work like that because she's a completely unlikable character. I was asked many times on the live stream how I could like this show. It's simple. Get rid of Michael Burnham, get rid of her relation to Spock, change the Klingons back, get rid of Kurtzman, keep Anson Mount, the rest of the damn crew, and we can work with that. And for good measure, get rid of Akiva Goldsman as well. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, hey, thanks for listening this long. I have a website, nerdrotic.com. That's where my live stream schedule is. We will be back with another Star Trek Discovery review next week, both a live stream and recorded video. We will do the same with the Orville. It may take a couple days for the recorded videos afterwards, but I will get to them as soon as I can. We are also covering good shows like Counterpart and Deadly Class. That's actually a pretty good show too.
Nerdrotic.com.
And the aforementioned
Please
Orville.
subscribe.
And in the future, the best sci-fi show on TV, The Expanse. Everybody, I want you to have a great day, and may the small folks sing songs of your greatness.